As the ground starts to rumble beneath NASCAR silly season, Toyota's top racing executive says it would be unacceptable to lose Kyle Busch after this season. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Kyle Busch has every right to be frustrated. This is an unprecedented moment of his career. On paper, he is the most accomplished NASCAR driver in the sport today. Just won his 60th race a few weeks ago. The only driver in the series right now with more than one championship to his credit. We know all about his dominance in the Xfinity and the Truck Series, yet Kyle Busch, at just the age of 37, still in his race car driver prime, is without a deal for the 2023 season, and has just lost a major lifelong sponsor, making negotiations all the more difficult. Kyle Busch has every right to be frustrated with his current situation. A few weeks ago, of course, when talking to reporters, he aired some of those frustrations, saying that he wished a deal had been done yesterday, sounding less than confident that Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota would find a new sponsor and would be able to get a deal done to Kyle Busch's liking. We reacted to those comments at the time. We haven't heard much out of the Kyle Busch camp since then, and it's been now a few weeks. Well, yesterday, Toyota Racing Development's David Wilson spoke to reporters about a wide variety of topics. We're going to talk about Le Mans here in just a few moments, but he spent a lot of time talking about Kyle Busch and his uncertain future, so that's where I want to begin this episode. Wilson said yesterday, "We've been very close to Kyle for years and years and years, and some of that relationship, to be candid, has been born through trials that we've gone through together and through controversy that we've gone through together. We've had some really tough times with Kyle Busch, but we're also sitting on 2 championships and in celebrating recently our 1,500 starts across 3 national series." I'm going to pause right there for a moment. It's interesting to hear Toyota Racing's top executive admit that, yeah, they've had issues with Kyle Busch over the years, which isn't surprising to any of us watching. Kyle Busch has been suspended for a race, fined multiple times during his Toyota tenure. He's been through multiple crew chiefs. The point is, when you're one of the, if not the most talented people in your profession, people and sponsors will put up with a lot to get the chance to work with you. The problem right now is that there isn't a major sponsor willing to work with Kyle Busch, and that's where all this pressure begins to set in. Let's continue with more of David Wilson's comments. "One driver has accounted for 36% of our total wins across all 3 series, and you know who that driver is. It's just amazing. So any scenario that doesn't have Kyle Busch retiring from Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota would be a monstrous disappointment for us and for Coach Gibbs and the family. The reality is Joe Gibbs can't afford to pay Kyle Busch. That comes from corporate sponsorship. Every driver's salary comes from whatever is on that race car on Sunday. We remain optimistic. We're working on a number of different solutions, harder than we ever have before." Some blunt comments in there for sure, but nothing we didn't already know. Obviously, Toyota wants to keep Kyle Busch. He's 37 years old. He'll still be racing for at least several more years at a very, very high level. I know he gets booed a lot on Sundays, but he's simultaneously one of the most popular drivers in the sport. He's one of the biggest names NASCAR currently has racing. And he's important to Toyota's development system through Kyle Busch Motorsports and ARCA and in the NASCAR Truck Series, of course. So that part of the quote's not surprising, and it's also not surprising to hear David Wilson candidly say that Joe Gibbs can't afford Kyle Busch out of his own pocket. Driver salaries aren't made public, but it's safe to say Kyle Busch has been one of, if not the, best paid NASCAR drivers in recent years. I don't think he's going to be willing to do the same job, but on a 50% or more pay cut. So again, we already knew this, but if Joe Gibbs Racing wants to keep Kyle Busch next year and beyond, they need a significant sponsor to step up to at least mostly replace M&M's. And yes, Kyle Busch is still one of the best drivers in the series today. I know he hasn't won a ton of races in recent years. He only won once in 2020, twice last year in 2021. But he's less than 3 years removed from a NASCAR Cup Series championship in 2019. And just 6-7 months ago, he was 1 position away from making it to the championship 4 yet again. He is still great. Maybe not quite as focused or as great as he was 4, 5, 6 years ago, you could argue, but he is still very much a championship contender year in and year out. He can win anywhere, any week. I just want to make that clear. You may not like him, you may think he's a head case, overly emotional, immature, but when it comes to pure racing talent, he is still one of the very best. That goes without saying. Let's go back to this sponsorship hunt for a second, since that's the linchpin in this whole deal. Roughly the same day, a few weeks ago, when Kyle Busch was voicing his frustrations publicly, Bob Pockrass from Fox Sports reported that he had heard Joe Gibbs Racing was fairly close to landing a major sponsor for Kyle Busch. Now, we haven't heard anything since, and maybe that's why Kyle Busch was so frustrated a few weeks ago talking to reporters, is because that deal did fall through suddenly. Maybe Busch's comments affected that negotiation. Remember, David Wilson from Toyota said afterwards that he was a little disappointed that Kyle Busch voiced his frustrations publicly. That's all speculation. There's still a great chance that whatever major sponsorship deal they were working on then, they're still working on now. A huge 10, 20, $30 million deal like this, I'm sure there are a lot of approvals that need to be gone through. It's not the kind of deal you sign overnight in most cases. It takes time and a lot of energy pouring over reviews and legal stuff, etc., etc. The point is that while David Wilson and Joe Gibbs Racing continue to sound optimistic, it's far from certain that Kyle Busch will stay in the 18 car next year. I can't envision any other scenario where Kyle Busch doesn't race for Joe Gibbs. Any other scenario is just unacceptable. The last I'll add is just the point of obvious. It takes both of us to get there, right? It takes Toyota, Joe Gibbs Racing, and Kyle Busch to get there. So we can't control everything, and I'll leave it at that. You've heard Toyota's side. They're optimistic, but they're cautiously optimistic. And that's how I feel as well. I'm optimistic that Kyle Busch will return to Joe Gibbs Racing and will stay as a Toyota driver for next year and probably many years to come. I'm optimistic because ultimately that's what Kyle Busch seems to want, and that's what Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing want. Every side wants the same thing. Like I said, they just currently don't have the funds to make it happen. So step one is everyone wants the same thing. And right now I think everyone does. Kyle Busch wants to race for Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing as long as the price is still roughly the same. And Toyota and Joe Gibbs Racing want to keep Kyle Busch in-house because he's an all-time great driver. He's been with them for over a decade. He's got a truck team with them. They need Kyle Busch, and Kyle Busch wants to stay with Toyota to continue to try and win championships. So that's why I'm optimistic, because all sides want the same thing. It just comes down to sponsorship money. It can be as simple as that. And if Joe Gibbs Racing doesn't have the sponsor money, Kyle Busch said it himself. He doesn't think any other team would pick him up. Whether that's because they can't meet his price or some other reason that we don't know for sure, but I think it's safe to say sponsorship money will determine Kyle Busch's NASCAR racing future. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think Joe Gibbs Racing will hold on to Kyle Busch? Do you think another team will somehow swoop in and snatch him up? Do you think Kyle Busch's future looks completely different after this year? Share your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, I'm not done with David Wilson just yet, because he also answered some questions about NASCAR's recent announcement that they're working with Hendrick Motorsports and Chevrolet to compete in the 24 Hours of Le Mans next year. NASCAR, Chevrolet, and Hendrick Motorsports made this announcement back in March, and according to Toyota, and actually according to Ford as well, they had no idea this announcement was coming until they saw that public press conference with the rest of us. David Wilson said yesterday, "I had zero notice. Candidly, it was a little disappointing as a stockholder and partner to NASCAR that neither Ford nor us was alerted. Within minutes, I had dialogues with Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell and Jim France and expressed our concerns and our displeasure. The good news is they have all responded and they hear us, and we have between ourselves and Ford given them some shared thoughts as of how this can be done in a manner that's reasonably fair." NASCAR has very strict testing rules in place, yet at the same time, they're working directly with Chevrolet and Hendrick Motorsports on a project that will give that team way more track time. There needed to be more transparency. I completely get why Toyota and Ford would be frustrated that they weren't even approached. We heard Denny Hamlin mention this at the time, that Toyota wasn't approached. Toyota executive here confirming that. I completely get why Hendrick Motorsports is the team NASCAR wants to represent the sport on the world stage, but I also get how the other teams and other manufacturers would be worried this would give Hendrick an unfair advantage. It sounds like Wilson is happy with what he's heard from NASCAR since then about transparency with the Le Mans testing. He said, "Every time that car is on the road, that's shared with us. And we will have that visibility and that transparency because that's what we've been promised. And we will be a party to participate in every test. We will be invited to every test." That's great that he trusts their transparency, but I still worry when you have all these Chevy and Hendrick guys working on the car, and you got one guy from Toyota, maybe one person from Ford looking in. I still feel like Chevy's gonna get more out of it than Ford or Toyota, so I think there still are some concerns that remain. I love that NASCAR's going to Le Mans as the Garage 56 entry. I think that's really, really cool, but I also think they should have handled this a little differently. They should have done something like what I think Denny Hamlin proposed a couple months ago, where instead they have just one neutral next-gen car, and they have a few people from Ford, a few people from Chevy, and a few people from Toyota all collaborating on that one entry. I feel like that would have made a ton of sense. Maybe logistically it was more difficult, but I don't know. I get why Toyota and Ford are concerned. Hopefully there is transparency there because, I mean, look around. We've run 13 races in the next-gen era, and Chevrolet's won more than half of them so far, 7 out of 13. Toyota and Ford have won 3 apiece. Hendrick alone has won nearly half the races. They've won 5. Chevrolet and Hendrick do not need any additional help. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, again, share your thoughts down in the comment section below. How do you feel about this Le Mans entry? Do you think it will be handled fairly and with plenty of transparency? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. That is going to do it for this episode of Out of the Groove. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. And as always, gotta say a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys keep this show rolling week in, week out, month after month. I really appreciate your support. We'll be back later this week. I'll also be at the All-Star race in Texas this weekend. Not doing an organized meetup this time like I did at Darlington, but if you see me, the tall guy probably wearing yellow and black of some kind, feel free to come say hi. I'm excited to be there. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a great one, y'all.